Hello, everyone. Jesse Harper, and with me this week I have a very special guest.
Hello guys, Bartosz here. You might know me from my two-time Pro Tour finalist finish, and from me playing all the possible aggro decks existing in the metas throughout the whole Flesh and Blood history, especially Briar recently. From my top 8 showdown finish, together with Paul van Heysel playing the same list to finish the first ever Sage Calling with a win on that deck.
Yeah. And that's what we're mainly going to be talking about today is the future of Sage Briar, the deck that you helped pioneer and put on the map, and then they came out with a ban list and about how that deck changes. But we got an interesting tidbit of news yesterday. They dropped a new BNR for Classic Constructed, and people have thoughts. They are happy, not happy, somewhere in between. Seems like the whole community is all over the place on this one. So we'll get into that real quick. I have the BNR pulled up here.
So it's not big.
Say again?
It's not big for a moment, the BNR. So
yeah, it's not big yet. Yeah. Garrett, that's the part that people are having issues with. Is the yet. The following changes are effective on Tuesday, March 24th. Scepter of Pain and Rootbound Carapace are unbanned. Any thoughts on these two cards?
Well, there's basically nothing making those cards good right now. Yeah, probably needs help. So another defense reaction for him will be a good addition. But other than that, Scepter of Pain, I'm not even sure if Vincent will want to run it, but maybe as a sideboard piece, but without Channel Mount 3 around.
Yeah. I know Vincent back in the day used to run Scepter. There was like some contention amongst Vincent players. Do I run Scepter or do I run Flail? But I'm not experienced enough to say one way or the other.
Also, same for me. I think that could be a sideboard piece. It's interesting that you can send it at allies, and whenever an ally is killed by it or like dealt damage, you create a rune chant, so you have a guaranteed way of making rune chants whenever you face off against ally-based decks. But the same is true for Flail, because you can always... Yeah, so not sure if it will find its place in the meta now, but maybe with another amp effect for Rune Blades. Next time we see them around, maybe then.
More amp for Rune Blade, you say? Sign me up. They touch on the Silver Age philosophy about bannings, and they basically say, all the precons will get 1 year of being, or 1 season of being untouched, essentially, before they look at banning anything inside the precons. A lot of people feel a certain way about this. I don't particularly care about this. I will probably never play a precon deck, so I'm a little biased on the issue. So for the people that this does affect, I can understand why they might be upset, but I'm going to probably play whatever deck I think is best for any given event.
That's probably the case for most of the players, but for the new players that just joined the game, it will probably be a really feels bad moment. Well, the same was the case with Aurora, that she got banned so quickly and people didn't like it. I think the outlash there was too big and LSS responded too quickly, too harshly. But we'll see how it goes.
Only time will tell. All right. So then what I feel is like the actual ban and restricted announcement, like this probably could have been its own separate article, but next BNR is on Thursday, May 28th, 2026. At the same time, it's the first round of Sage voting, and they will also be banning the following cards from Classic Constructed: Channel Lightning Valley, Electromagnetic Somersault, Phantasmal Tide Mob, Reaping Blade, Skywood Serenade, and Volzar the Lightning Rod. There's a lot of changes here.
Yeah, I didn't expect that many changes for the Lightning. I'm both not surprised and surprised with the fact that CLV is getting banned, because we only had time to play with it for like a year now, maybe a year and a half. Is that correct? Then with banning that card so fast, even before the format is out, Probably it would have a lot of unhealthy interactions, especially with Ziggy. So I could see it being a thing. I'm not surprised with. I was kind of hoping for a Ripping Blade ban at some point, as that weapon is so efficient and plays so well with the Arknight grasps that like printing. You would need to print something better for any Rune Blade to consider playing that weapon over Ripping Blade, as we've seen with Florian. So that's a really good ban there. I was kind of expecting at some point for a Rune Blade that will have this weapon as his specialization to come out so that they can ban it together with them. And I guess that was kind of the case together with Florian, as he was basically the one and only running this weapon.
Yeah, I agree. I would have really liked to see a Rune Blade come out with this as his like signature weapon. You know, there's like lore implications to this weapon that they touch on, and so if you're like a lore person, you can go see Viscerai rip someone's spine out and turn it into the thing. Yeah, but I was I was very surprised to see Volzar on here. That like out of all the cards, I think that was the one that caught me the most. Like Ziggy just kind of breaks a lot of the cards on this list, even in like initial testing. And we have 3 cards. I was like, yep, this is expected. Somersault had to go. We've seen the thing that Starvo was able to do with it. Now imagine giving that to another kind of like very polarizing hero that is an illusionist, and then maybe things not so good.
Could go really bad really fast.
Yeah, exactly. I will say though, people are freaking out by and large about this BNR, and I think it's okay to have opinions on this. I do not think it's okay to like take to Twitter and like at James White and Brian and everybody and just be rude and like condescending. Like you can be upset, you can be happy, just overall be respectful. So on that note, we'll get into the main topic here. The main topic is Briar and what that deck is going to look like going forward in the future of Sage. So I believe you have a very different take on Briar at the moment than I do. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, that was an experiment of mine that I was looking forward to testing out whenever there would be a chance. And well, after bans, there was a pretty good moment to try to test different ideas. And I came up with a 3-4-7 Briar list. It's nothing as innovative because it was a deck back in the days, even during the time of Briar being a CC legal hero. Charles Dunn won US championship with it, right?
Yeah, US Nationals.
US Nationals. So the deck was known, but it got many new tools in the Compendium of Rank, and being able to play good cards in that format whenever there are only commons and rares, and some classes have much better commons and rares than the others, as we see in case of KO. Well, and in Briar before bans. It was surprising to me how good and efficient the cards are, and how good is blocking for 4 in the format. Well, not surprising when you think about it, and Guardians having so many yellow block 4s. But in the case of the blue Briar or 3-4-7 Briar, you have all your blue 4 blocks as they are non-attacks, and whenever you get an embodiment, you can block with 2 of your cards for 4, covering all the possible breakpoints, and then swing back at your opponent with 3-4-7 of different kinds. The most basic ones being Colors of Aria and Autumn Starch, of course. But then we get Cadaver Stealing. That's 3-4-8, so that's a huge upgrade. And I was trying a lot of different stuff, but I ended up playing whenever I was testing the deck, because it's a 3-4-7 that you can make into 4-4-8 whenever you need it. And one of my most liked new additions is the card that I forgot the name, but I will look up. Runic Felling Song. Runic Felix song because it's basically Arcanic Crackle, but it's bigger and well, it's harder to make it work because you need an aura in a discard pile, and it's not that easy to find an aura in Sage that is. And well, there are basically only two good auras. The one is Sigil of Earth because it's Earth, and it blocks 2, so it's kind of feels bad, but you need to make do with what you have. And the other one is the new one that I don't know how to pronounce, but it's Sigil of Fade.
Oh, it's like Sylphide. Yeah, Sylphide or something.
Yeah, the Spidey thing Sigil, and it's nice that you can even use it in the second cycle to deal arcane damage to your opponent, but mostly I was using them to funnel the runic felling songs, both blues and reds, as it's one of the few blues that are on rate, mixed damage, and guarantee getting an embodiment. So that was my take on the deck list. Much different one from the standard lightning build that's all Cheerio, zero cost attack actions and non-attack actions. It was a cool experiment. I think it's really good, and with some refinement, it could. I would take it to a tournament, but it even had a positive win rate into Chaos, so that's why I was considering it as being a good deck. Into Guardians, you still have the Evergreen loop, so you are never getting out of gas in the second cycle, and it's always the case during the tournaments such as Showdown that you will catch your opponent off guard whenever you present Briar and you are playing a build that's so vastly different. It's easy to get some points into the matchup from the fact that you are playing some off meta strategy, but with similar output, maybe even better output on average. So that was my take on the Briar, the new one. But I still believe the Lightning build is really strong, and I'm kind of surprised that people just went to KO all the way through and didn't consider Briar another time, didn't give her another chance. But I've seen that you guys did something with the Briar, something interesting.
Yeah, yes, we did. My team and I took Briar, and we wanted to continue to play that kind of like Cheerios Briar build that you helped Paul win the calling on and popularize with the flourishes and all that stuff. But we took it slightly a step forward, punishing people for not presenting Arcane Barrier, and then the more aggressive decks that do present Arcane Barrier, well, every time they decide to AB1, they're just going to go -2. And so we wanted to really just like limit the opponent's decisions on what they actually can do and basically make everybody start the game sub 20 just because of the amount of arcane that's in the deck. And it's very hard to win a game of Sage when you start somewhere between 12 to 14 life because of all the pings for one. But I agree. I think Briar is very underrated, and I'm not really surprised people jumped to KO as like hard as they did. But I do think she's very underrepresented. In the showdown in Memphis, there was only 3 copies of Briar registered in the whole tournament. There was 57 KO.
KO for sure is an easy pickup, and the output he presents is outrageous. Like, it's basically 16 to 17 per turn average. This deck never breaks, and even if it breaks, you still have beaten trackers. I'm not surprised that they didn't ban anything because of the chapter thing. But this deck for sure needs some bans, as it's basically that deck has basically the same output as the CC1, -1 value per turn average, minus blood rushes, but everything else is basically the same. Especially looking at the Sage format where everything is toned down. So everything is on average -1 value, but you are still outputting so big numbers so consistently that it's really hard to catch up by anyone.
I think you and I both had a discussion before this about our win rates into KO, and we both thought we had the version of Briar that had the positive matchup into KO. Me thinking on the aspect of a can't really present AB profitably because we're still sending physical damage, and they have a lot of pearls in the deck. So the arcane seems kind of free. At AGE New England, I did play against a KO, and he presented AB, and pretty much had to hold extra cards, couldn't attack me just to not die to all the arcane things of one. But I think there's room in the format for people to explore and be creative. I think it really just depends on how much time people are willing to put in. And I think at this point, like you said, it's very easy for people to just go, turn the brain off, pick up KO, let's go play this tournament.
Oh, we all see the biggest improvements in the deck building for Pro Tour, of course, because there's money on the line, and for the showdowns, it's for most people, and also for me, it's mostly the side event. So whenever I have to play the showdown level event, I will try to innovate as much as possible, but whenever you are going to a big tournament, it's probably in CC, so you have to prepare and spend time there already, so you will not have any more time left to practice the secondary format that you might be playing, but you don't intend to play, other than the side events and the showdown. So we'll probably see something come up for the Pro Tour. I wouldn't be surprised, as it was the case for Worlds recently, that Chain came up out of nowhere. Dio was also a surprising pick from a lot of people. But KO is probably a Starvo of that format right now. It's like the most default choice that is consistent, does its thing. It's kinda easy to play. There are some edges that you can get through playing the deck well and having some experience, especially into the slower matchups like Ultim and Terra, where you have to be careful about your resources being spent whenever you go through your deck, set up some second cycle plays. But other than that, the deck is pretty self-explanatory, and you just send a Go Again, send a Claw, send a 2/7, and roll with it.
Yeah, overall, Sage is really felt like we're just throwing hands at each other until someone dies, until somebody can't convert their hand into meaningful damage, and they have to get stuck in that blocking cycle. And I agree. I think most people are not prepping to play the showdown. If they qualify for the showdown, something went horribly wrong in the calling. So, but prepping for Sage definitely feels easier, I think, or more efficient with your time, just because the card pool of the format is smaller. And because that card pool is smaller, it really helps simplify learning the format. It's easier to understand certain tempo dynamics and understanding that hand size versus damage, and managing your hand size to help limit your opponent's choices in each game is like very important and can be picked up quickly with a lot of games.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I think that Sage isn't, because it tests your ability of deck building and playing correctly, like making every decision correct, more than having a grand game plans and playing well or trying to outskill your opponent. It's like if both players are on the same level, it mostly boils down to not making mistakes, not making any objectively bad plays, and to see who has better deck building, better game knowledge. And I feel like this format tests that really well. I agree with what Jacob Clement said in one of his tweets, that he thinks that Sage is not as basic as people say it is, but it for sure is more entry level and not as supple when it comes to making plays and decision making than in comparison to CC, but it still has some good things in there. And in some games you really have to work for your win, and there are spots where you can really show your understanding of the basics. And in CC, it's not often the case. Mostly whenever we had a chance to show that you have good game knowledge and you know the basics of blocking and attacking, how to take the tempo back, how to set up your big turns, what are your win conditions. It was in draft, but we didn't have drafts for a long time. So it's good that we now have a format that also shines light on that, being one of the, for me at least, big selling points, that there's both deck building that was present in draft, and there's also the general basic knowledge of basics of the game that you can use in there to your advantage.
Yeah, I agree. I think these 20 life formats really show the skill expression of a lot of players when it comes to decision making, when it comes to even just deck building. Like draft deck building and Sage deck building kind of feel similar in a certain way, where you're looking for specific cards in certain matchups. Like, you're going to play these things. Okay, so I'll have like a couple of tech pieces, but I want to have good numbers overall. What's my game plan? Like, how do I win these games? And it really helps kind of conceptualize that mind palace of like, how do these games play out in my head on paper? And is this realistic to do? And your decisions should mirror that plan, that image you have for those decks when you're creating them.
Exactly, yeah.
Is there anything about Sage that has caught you off guard recently? Like outside of KO, outside of Briar, like any decks that have just like popped up on your radar that have just been going, oh, this is cool. I like this. Maybe there's something here.
I really liked whenever I was playing some games on Talishar, I faced off against Phi build that was running Kunai and either a Tassen or a Bloodied Oval as an offhand. And it was a mono red, basically no yellows other than Salt the Wound, I believe. Full red liner list. That was using the Tiger equipment only to be able to either send Kunai as your starter if you miss it, or to be able to use the new Phi card that discards a Phoenix Flame and draws a card that's named Fire That Burns Within. So it was using that chest resource only for that, and other than that, it was all gas, no brakes, all the head jabs or the 440 possible. And it was also averaging some insane numbers. So that was a really nice idea. And the show of deck building, what you can do in the format, even though it's only commons and rares, I really like that. And also, I've seen some Vinsets pop up recently, especially after the success of Vinset in the CC format. I'm not surprised. And also, what I really like about Vinset is she's kind of like Chain. She's one of the few decks in the format that can run pummels efficiently, and they don't impede with her game plan because you can spend mana on other things, and you have stuff to do other than playing. Like you are not forced to spend a whole card only to play a pummel, and that's something that's not present in any of the other decks, because in Guardians it's pretty obvious whenever you will have pummel because you had to take so much damage. There's no Sigil of Solace, so you had to take so much damage to set it up, and then you have two cards in hand and there's an attack coming your way. What's there? What could it be? And in Vincent, it's at least you can hide it, that it's something else. You have some other tools, tricks in the deck, and also it really helps that you don't have to spend much more. You don't have to spend mana on the cards you play, so it's easier to set up the rune gate in the banish zone than play it out with the rune chants you've prepared beforehand, and then be able to pummel on top of it. So that's also a really interesting deck I've seen pop up recently. And I think whenever I was talking with my locals about the format, it came up that for me, the best deck to play would be the one that can abuse two, I believe, most efficient, the best cards in the format, and them being Arcane Polarity and pummels.
Interesting.
Because these are the cards that break the numbers, and if there is a deck that can run both efficiently, of course, because as is the case of Guardians, they don't play pummels efficiently. So, but Vincent.
Yeah, Vincent, definitely a deck that's popped up on my radar recently for both formats, actually, CC and Sage, because I had that crazy showing by June in Calling Montreal, and then has just been kind of showing up everywhere since. For Sage, though, the deck that I was really interested in, and maybe I'm biased because it plays Talishar, but the Dash aggro deck, the Hyperdriver aggro deck, looked really good when Connor played it into me at AGE. He did ultimately knock me out of top 8. We ran it back afterwards, keeping the same conditions of me having to go first because he was the higher seed. But the second game, I started with double Arcane Seed's life and was able to Arsenal Sigil of Suffering and just pass, and I was like, I feel so good about this. This is my avenue to win. But that game still ended up being very close. It was just like, I was at 2, and I think he was at 1, and then it just came down to, can he keep cards? And with those life thresholds, every breakpoint matters. But that deck's really impressive. That hat is insane. Have you played against the new mech hat?
But whenever I've actually sat down to read Dash's cards after seeing that deck pop up, yeah, the equipment is insane. I didn't expect for her equipment to be so strong in that format.
Yeah, I just knew I was cooked the moment I sat down, and he had 81 and Talishar across the table. It was like my kryptonite. I was like, oh no, I'm probably just dead here. So you recently put up a couple Metafy guides, right? One of them being about your big Briar lists. Was the
No. It's the lightning list, but for all the buyers, I also included some small guide inside the guide about the 347 Briar. Well, because I thought that is the good idea coming into basically the new format after the bans, to try that strategy over playing the lightning build, as the lightning build, it's still good. It still has numbers, but it's removing its explosivity. It really hurts against the fatigue matchups like Guardians, basically. So that was really hard for me to figure out how to beat. Maybe there's a way.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to ask about Metafy specifically for you is you've recently taken to writing a lot more long form content on Metafy and kind of coming into your own in the content creator space. And what was the point where you finally said, okay, I'm sitting down, I'm doing this, I'm making guides, I am throwing my hat in the ring for content creation? When did you finally decide to pull the trigger? Because you've been in the fab space for a while.
For me, it was, well, I wouldn't say I really started with the content creation that hard. I just put together, one guide together with Paul and Jimmy, as we've prepped the Briar list for the London together. So it felt natural to post it, especially whenever me and Paul had an interview about the list with LSS. So that's how it came to fruition. And then some people during the calling to lose asked me about the Syndra deck list, if I will post it anywhere. So I figured out that I might as well post some small write-up about how it went, why I chose the deck and what's in there. And people seem to like it, so I will probably try some other things, maybe with Aurora. And so not sure how it will end up and if I'll be creating much more content, but I'm always happy to talk about the game whenever someone invites me over. So it's kind of natural how it came to be.
Speaking of Aurora, you're pretty well known as an Aurora player. What do you think of the new one, and how much do you think that the not having access to the elemental cards is going to change this hero?
Well, it will for sure make her much worse, at least initially. But I like them cutting all the elemental pull from her, because all the elemental cards were so broken. Like, I believe if they've printed an Aurora that had no text, like the elemental essence of lightning Aurora, no text, 40 life, that hero would be on top of the meta game right now, even having to run Reaping Blade. because the numbers in the deck were crazy. Like you basically were never using the ability anyway most of the time. There were some redliner builds that were having 3 blues and they were in the sideboard for the slower matchups, but not using them at all. It was still efficient to pitch a red to keep CLV around because CLV was so strong. I feel like she would be so strong even as a textless hero. That is it's a really cool idea on how to overcome the card pool issue by making her pure lightning. And we will see what the new cards are. I really like the lightning flow as a thingy you will be using during the gameplay, as it being an aura also has some smaller interactions that you might use, like playing Condemns to Slaughter whenever you need to sacrifice an aura you control. So if you can sacrifice lightning flow, maybe you will be using the Runeblade pool more than lightning, because basically the previous Aurora was running all the generics, all the elemental and lightning cards, and the only Runeblade cards you were playing were elemental Runeblade cards, so that hero wasn't a Runeblade per se. Like, the only thing you had from being a Runeblade was the broken equipment, and sometimes having random arcane damage on a few cards in there, so you weren't even playing non-attack actions. Like, you were playing non-attack actions, but well, you were playing burn-up shocks and serenades. So you were playing 5-4-0 non-attack actions and then 5-4-0 attack actions. Then everything that had go again on it.
And then there was that armory deck card that was misprinted that really just pushed her into the sun. At least they're banning that one. They're fixing that.
Yeah, it's getting banned. Well, rightfully so, because it was something.
Something is a word for it. It was just, and it was crazy too, because that card kind of set the precedent for what we thought the armory decks were going to be going forward.
Right? Oh yeah, that's every armory deck having a broken deck defining card that will be a centerpiece, or at least an inclusion that makes the deck so much stronger than it would initially be without it. Yeah, I agree. That's a good point.
So, snap pick, right now, you only have access to the 3 new heroes from Omens with only the cards that we've seen so far. Who are you taking to the next big tournament?
I'm really interested in Oscilio, because he looks like he might be playing basically as a 5 intellect hero, depending on how much lightning flow you can generate, but being able to get a ponder token each turn seems really strong. So I'm really interested in the Swell Cilio, the Brocilio.
Yeah, some people call him Brocilio, Swolcilio, Swolio. People are not decided on the name yet.
Yeah, but well, probably a snap pick for me would be, of course, Aurora, because she's so fun to play, and so many 4/4/0s you can play, and you can also play defense reactions. And there's one really good defense reaction in there that we all like to play.
Sigil of Suffering, broken.
Oh, such a good card. It has so many haters. I don't know why. What would be the reason to hate such a nice card?
I don't know. They just don't like suffering, I guess. All right, Bartosz, I think that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. So nice to talk with you. What are my I'm on X.
Okay.
With @InazumiTCG, and we have a small space on MetaFi called Bartosz's Den, and that's where I've posted my original Briar guide, and I also posted my Syndra write-up. I think that will be the place where, if I will have any tournament runs that I would want to talk about, I'll be posting some stuff, maybe some guides for Aurora whenever she comes out, if people are interested in it. So these are the 2 places where you can find me. And, well, hope to see everyone during the next big tournament.
Thank you again for stopping by. Everyone, if you liked this video, please like and subscribe.